Good morning, everybody. It's Monday. We're looking forward to those wins. Well, okay, I don't know why I messed that up, but I totally messed it up. But that's okay. I'm here. I got a little razzled today. But welcome to the Dads in Business Monday Motivation Podcast. We're looking forward to getting those wins. We're looking forward to talk with you in the live chat. I love doing this podcast. I just absolutely love it. My guest today is Neal Conlon. He had a significant impact on my life, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other people's lives, because I hear so much about him. Neal Conlon is the founder of Press Forward. The course that I took is 21-day accountability challenge, which dramatically affected my life. But there's so much more that I want to talk about. His Neptune retreat, the metaphysics. There's just a lot. There's a lot. And I just want to welcome Neal. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, Glenn, I'm super excited to do this with you, and any opportunity that I get to talk about the journey, but also share motivational stuff with people, I love to do it. So let's dig right into it.
Yeah, you know what? Of course. So even though I had everything set up, your screen was black, but you're fixed now. You're good. You're here. You're aware. You're here.
All good, man. All good.
So, my man, you joined the Marines at what age?
So I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school on my 18th birthday, which is March 21st. Walked over to the recruiting office, signed up on my own, went home, sat down for dinner with my mom. My mom was like, "How was your day?" I was like, "Great. I joined the Marine Corps today. I leave in 3 months."
How did that conversation go?
It really is. Over the years, I've realized it's the manifestation of just kind of who I always have been. And one of the things, if we talk about the kind of origin story, is that 3 out of 4 of my grandparents were immigrants. And so I just kind of grew up with this salt of the earth, like you can do anything you want to do at life. But what's ironic about that is they always said to me, "Neal, you can be anything you want to be in this country," right? Which is a very immigrant kind of way to think about things.
And I think that holds true even today.
100%. They never told me I had to play by the rules. They never said I had to do it the way someone else wanted it done. And so I just have that fire inside of me that's like, I can do anything that I apply myself to.
And so that is one of the things that kind of drew me to sort of connect with you. I mean, but once I started doing research, I started realizing like this guy's got so much more on in his backpack, so many tools and so much, kind of grit. And just like you said, when you joined the Marines, what was your impression of the Marines? Like, did you find it to be exactly what you're looking for, or sort of?
Well, at that time, right? So that was in 1990s. I joined the Marines because I was a troublemaker of a child. I wanted to get out of New York, right? So I was living in New York. Most of my summer weekends were spent in Connecticut with my grandparents, right? That's a big piece of my connection to Connecticut, where a lot of the dads in business are, and the Marine Corps makes you one promise. The Marine Corps makes you a promise that if you are mentally and physically strong enough, you will get the opportunities to serve this country. And that is it. That there is no promise beyond that. And so what's crazy about the military, even to this day, is I'm such a huge believer that if you've served military service, I don't care whether you sat behind a desk or drove a Humvee or cleaned a weapon all day long, you get probably about the equivalent of a master's degree in leadership. And I'm such a huge believer in this piece because we'll talk about it some more, but I've worked directly, like every single day, with with CEOs of billion-dollar companies, and I've watched the way that they operate, when under stress, or how they operate when they don't know what to do next. And I've gone blow for blow with them. I've coached, executives at Fortune 500 companies, and 9 times out of 10, whenever it comes to leadership stuff, I'm pulling from my leadership training from Marine Corps leadership doctrine. To this day, I still feel that while there's a whole bunch of struggle for military transition folks, for sure, the tools that they have are epic and amazing.
And so now that, because you mentioned coaching the executives, but right after the military, you went straight into corporate sales. Am I wrong? Or
yeah, so the quick origin story there is, I served a bunch of years in the Marine Corps. When I started picking up rank, I started. My goal was to serve for 20 years. That was my plan. And when I started,
you didn't actually do 20 years, I don't think, right?
No. When I started to pick up rank and started to interact with senior enlisted people, I got this impression at the time that they were kind of institutionalized. They get scared about getting out. They get scared about what life is going to be. And you basically go from being, an apex predator who understands the world you live in into not. And so they would choose not to get out. And something inside of me was like, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to end up being that person. And I was married at the time. And when I chose to exit the Marine Corps, my partner at that time didn't realize it. So I went through a divorce, very early on in life, and then jumped into the corporate world. Was in the corporate world for 8-10 years at some of the largest companies on the planet. I worked at Morgan Stanley and Cushman & Wakefield, in private equity and hedge funds and financial services. That was all mostly operational or technology kind of focused jobs. But then I got working at a company, and I had a mentor who basically said, you're such a great storyteller and you're so quick on your feet that you should come over and do sales. And he changed my life. I think something that people underestimate, even in today's world, is that when people stop their lives and give you a little bit of their time, they are intentionally pivoting your life. Always. There's always these little breadcrumb moments, I call them, where people will just stop and give you a little bit of their attention. And the next thing you know, you can run with that. And so I had a mentor who said, I think you should come work in sales. And for about 2 years, he mentored me in a top-down approach of learning everything about sales. And it changed my life in the fact of I love sales, and I love helping people with sales, because at the end of the day, like, all the other things are cool and amazing, but we live in a world that's driven by resources and change. And so if you can sell something, if you're good at sales, you can always pivot into something else, no matter how much the world changes. And I realized that the world was going to be changing a lot early on. And so I wanted to master something that was always going to be an available resource for people.
That is exactly. I think that would be I think that also kind of comes from the Marine Corps kind of thing, where you're adapting and always adapting. And one of the things that I've learned from you is that you never really stop learning. Right. Everything's always new. Everything's ever changing. Now we have the AI thing coming up, and it's really, really taken over. I want to talk about something a little, like, because I was doing my deep dive, and I did find a obscure video of you. And let me see if I can play this clip. And I want to play this clip because something happened from 7 years ago to now that you're a totally different person, totally different. Because when I watched this video, I was like, and in the beginning of the podcast, because I told you about the clip, and I said, "Is this really you?" Because you were such a different person. But let me try to play this clip and see if I can pull this off. Let me switch it over here.
Let's do it.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool thing. There it is. Tell me if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see it.
All right.
And it's Ken Kreitzer for CVSI Service.
Look at that guy.
Yeah, I know. I don't know
Services
why.
in New York City. Today, we're at the Financial Service Marketing with AI, Artificial Intelligence seminar hosted by.
I don't know. I think I'm taxing my internet speed here. Even had it paused.
All good, Matt. All good.
And this is Ken Kreitzer for CVSI Services in New York City. Today, we're at the Financial Service Marketing with AI, Artificial Intelligence seminar hosted by.
When you told me you were working with AI back in the day, you were.
And one of the speakers, a veteran
Yeah,
of the United States Marine Corps, we learned Neal Conlon.
Is like, Neal, good to see 7 years ago, right? I've been working directly with different forms of AI stuff since 8, 9 years ago.
You gave a great session today about digital.
But I'm so glad that you brought this picture up because you bring up a very
whether you want to increase sales, generate
amazing that we should discuss a little bit more.
Yeah, no, and I thought when I found this, I said to myself, I was like, wow, this is pretty incredible. If I could get it to play, I have no idea. Like I have a gig up and a gig down, and it's still not running, even though I reloaded a page. Anyway, so I'm gonna go back to our screen here, but the thing
Sam.ai and one of the speakers, a veteran of the
so it's just
United States Marine Corps. We learned Neal Conlon, and Neal, good to see you. You gave a great session today about digital marketing and artificial intelligence and what the future brings with those new technologies. Good to see you.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks for doing the interview.
Our pleasure. And you talked a little bit today about trust, the importance that customers have trust in.
All right. So, okay. For some reason, the clip didn't want to run. Even though I tested it thoroughly before we started. But the takeaway that I got from watching that video is that your personality then and your personality now is a completely different person. And the question that I want to ask you is what changed from then, besides the beard, to now? Because the beard is much longer.
Yeah, I love this question, right? I think a lot of times also, just to start off, I think a lot of people, when they see somebody, who coaches, or even somebody up on stage who's a speaker or a facilitator, it's real easy to like look up that person or be like, yeah, I hear you. I need to grow myself. Yeah, I need a plan. Yeah. I deserve better. Yeah. Self, like all these different things that are all pretty common terms, in today's world. But oftentimes what you don't get to see is what those people have been through, in order to get there. And so that picture and that video of me is a great reminder of kind of how far I've come over the past 7 years. Now to answer your question very directly, there was kind of two critical points for me, because I think the 7 years ago, that was like you mentioned, I was already working with AI. I saw that things were changing, and I had been pretty focused on, just like everybody else kind of becomes pretty focused at some point in their lives. I go to work every day. I make a paycheck. I, just grind. Right. And there was just kind of this hamster wheel that I was starting to realize that I was on, and I couldn't figure out how to make it work. No matter what, it just didn't feel like it worked. So I was in this self-inquiry mode of why is this not going the way that I think it should be going? And then the other piece of it is that was right around that time. Ironically, I got into a disagreement with someone I was working with in the industry, but they said something to me that triggered me, and it caused me to kind of really self-reflect. I think a lot of times people don't realize when you have a negative conversation with someone and someone calls you out on something, it's probably a great message for you to learn if you have the ability to receive it. And that message to me was, the outcome I got to was, why am I letting somebody else decide what I'm worth? That was it. Like most people, and this is really, really great for anyone listening. It's like you sign up for a job, and someone else decides what your time is worth, and people abuse it, and people take advantage of your time. And somebody said to me basically that, and said, why do you let someone else decide what your time is worth and what your self-worth is? And I walked away with this problem for like months. I literally, like, somebody gave me a Rubik's Cube, and I literally walked off and I fumbled with it for like 6 or 8 months. And most people will get the Rubik's Cube multiple times and have a problem, and they get frustrated with it, and you put it down and just go back to work and do your thing. And in the back of your head, the Rubik's Cube is still there. It's on the shelf, and it'll like itch at you. You keep on looking at it every now and again, and you're like, God, I just want to solve the Rubik's Cube, but it's hard. And for me at that moment, I picked up a Rubik's Cube, and for the next 6 or 8 months after I think that video, I just kept on spinning it and spinning it and spinning it. And little by little, over a period of time, it got to a point where it all kind of started to make sense. And that's turned into, the evolution from there was a whole bunch of self-healing and metaphysical work, plant medicine stuff, going to retreats, going to personal development events, and then finding out that other people went through these things and I wasn't alone. And then kind of coming back to myself, and then ultimately being very, very successful, in a bunch of technology companies. But then ultimately still feeling like I had to like do something from within, which has just been this ongoing kind of work that I do, and then evolving that and realizing like, this is so hard. That Rubik's Cube is so hard for people to do, especially in 2020s. And realizing that I want to help people fix that problem. And that's where the manifestation of me getting into coaching and events and a whole bunch of the other stuff that we do now, has become critical and very, very important, and so needed in the world.
So when you mentioned that you got into coaching and all that, and then move forward from there, I can tell that from that to now, the massive change it had in your personality. And I'm going to share a little bit about it, because I had the same experience with you. We probably chatted once and then chatted on a second time. And I was in that looking, my Rubik's Cube was sitting on the shelf. And I was like, I'm not even going to look at that fucking thing. But there is a phrase that you said to me, and then and I take this phrase every time I wake up and said I want to sleep another extra 15 minutes. This phrase plays in my head. There's one thing that you said to me, and I'm going to do it exactly how your face was, because it was your face that really gave me the inspiration. But you said to me, just like this, I'm going to do it. Glenn, you really got to get your shit together. And that was my moment. That the same moment that you had, that was my moment. And I play that video basically in my head every time something comes in front of me. And I say, I don't want to do that. Glenn, get your shit together. Okay, let's go. And that was the head snapper for me. And I want to thank you for that, because it's changed everything around me. And as maybe some people don't know, but I'll tell my story. 5-year long divorce process. Ex completely running me through the ringer. And it was a very, very dark time for me. And you were that light that really shined. I categorized it like I was going through a dark tunnel. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, but you had the lantern saying, it's over here, bro. I got you. It's over here. And I don't know if you knew that or not. I think you did. I think I told you that a couple of times.
Yeah, no. Well, first and foremost, thank you for sharing that again. I think that's great. And I very much appreciate that. I'm honored actually to be able to have those conversations with people. And the thing that's crazy about that is, like, we live in this world now, right, where everybody doesn't want to hurt anyone else's feelings, right? But I think if you know how to do that, right, and that's one of the things I am very confident about, is if you were to hear some of the things that I end up saying during my coaching out of context, people would be like, "This guy's an asshole." And the thing that people that I pay attention to through, some of the neuro-linguistics programming conversations the trainings that I've been through, and also just like boots on the ground of like coaching hundreds and hundreds of people, is like there is a more times than not where it is appropriate that when you build the right level of trust with somebody, when you build the right level of rapport with somebody, and you have the best of intentions for them, you have no other choice but to say to them, get your shit together. Like, or, like some of the other phrases that you'll see me mention a lot of other times, is play bigger, right? Do better. Like we live in this world now. I'll give you everyone a really good example where, I'll post something online in my marketing posts and stuff like that, and it triggers, a man or a woman who's just in a dilapidated place to come back with a really quippy, internet trolly comment. And my comment most of the time is, do better than that. Do better than that. And also what I find a lot of times with a lot of men, especially, is, going back to the Rubik's Cube for a second, they probably didn't get set up the right way so that they could have the Rubik's Cube available to them when they wanted to do it, right? The Rubik's Cube is supposed to be like a hobby. It's a game, it's playful, it's fun. It's supposed to be something that gets you excited to tinker and get your gears going a little bit, right? And then as you get closer and closer, it gets exciting, knowing that you could literally turn it one way and the whole thing just disappears from you again. It's a really, really good metaphor for understanding like what it's like to be like, all right, I went to this type of school. I grew up in this type of family. I grew up in this neighborhood, and these are the jobs that are available to me. And sooner or later, for everybody, the Rubik's Cube just starts to kind of eat away at you. Or you're going to do everything you can to numb yourself from avoiding it. And the ability to tell people, you got to play bigger, right? You should try. It's not so much that you're stuck, or you don't know what to do next. It's just that you were never afforded the opportunity or the space, as I call it, in order for you to really think about like, what do you really want? And then everybody goes back to Rubik's Cube sooner or later. Everybody goes back to it.
Yep. And I've gone back to that Rubik's Cube probably 4 or 5 times. And I like that. I love the phrase play bigger, because that's what we all have to do. Because even though we reach a certain level or a certain milestone, you can't stop. Things change so dramatically, and the tools that are available are so ever changing that's exactly what you have to do, is solve the next problem and the next problem and the next problem. And our whole life is just that until we retire. And then we can go sit on the beach with the cocktails and feel comfortable because we've worked to get there. Now, we are running out of time, but I want to talk about the Neptune retreat, because that was a sick retreat that you had going on. Tell me a little bit about it. I don't want to go too much detail because it did happen in April. Are you doing another one? So, those kind of questions I want to ask. So tell me, what is the Neptune retreat and why did you do it?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've done 20 or so retreats over the past 5 years. And so they're always growing, right? Not only in size, but in growing in kind of mechanism to it. So the short version is that I'm a huge believer that the more comfortable that you get with being uncomfortable, the stronger the tools and skills you'll have to handle day-to-day life. So the concept came from, let's go on an excursion, a hard to recreate excursion in a very uncomfortable place for a lot of people, spend 3 days there, and relationship conversations, business conversations, quitting your job, starting a new business.
Let's not leave out the detail on the location though.
No. Well, I'm setting it up,
Gotcha.
right? So, but like all of those things become a lot easier when you put yourself in a very uncomfortable place. And so the Neptune retreat was epic and amazing. And what that was it was taking helicopters or boats 35 miles off the coast of North Carolina to it's really like a lighthouse, but to people to give a vision, it looks like an oil rig. Once you get dropped off, you have to be hoisted 80 feet into the air onto this rig. And it's called the Frying Pan. If you look it up on YouTube, it's also labeled as the most dangerous hotel on the planet. And once you're there, you're agreeing to a Coast Guard kind of mandate that the Coast Guard will not come and get you, regardless of storm or anything else. You've been warned that it's dangerous. And so spending 3 days at sea, swells of the ocean, weather changing on a hairpin. 1 minute the wind's blowing 10 miles this way, the next minute it's 25 miles that way. Beautiful place for the most part. And it's uncomfortable because you're just out in the middle of nowhere. You get super present with yourself. You have really present conversations with the other people that are there. And at the end, you've got kind of a big, kind of notch on your belt that you've conquered something that very few people on the planet have ever conquered. And once you can do that, everything else gets a lot easier.
Bro, I was looking at the pictures, reading the description. It was so epic. And you may not know this about me, but about 3 or 4 lives prior to this, I was what's called a ship's agent. So I would have to meet ships at sea, sometimes flown by helicopter. But most of the time it was by boat in heavy seas. And I know you know what this looks like, but you know the ladder that's on the side because you're a Marine. So I know you climbed this ladder. It's that wood ladder, that's rope ladder. It's got that one long plank that's the only stabilizer. And then, you know what I'm saying? And you're climbing basically the side of a building. So when you mentioned the uncomfortable part, and then of course, again, that's the Rubik's Cube reference again. It's that's the thing you solve. You got to get over that. And because you have a job to do, you have a thing to do, you have a point to move forward to. And I mean, that's why I love you so much, man, because you really challenge. Like when people say they challenge people, like, no, you really challenge people. So now we talked about it. I want to talk about Press Forward because that is your most recent thing. And I want to give you the stage here to really talk about that and tell me about your next upcoming Press Forward event.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing because while I am very technology forward and focused and very business minded, I recognize that there's only really 2 types of coaching and 2 places we struggle. You either need business coaching, which is I'm going to teach you how to do a P&L statement, teach you a sales system and a sales process. And I love doing that because those are all mechanics and all systems you put in place. The other side of it is it's all going to be mindset. And there's so many people in the world right now that feel stuck, don't know what to do next, are frustrated, all the excuses, all the obstacles. I got dealt a bad hand of cards, whatever the thing is. And so over time, I've built a couple of frameworks to navigate that. But what I've also come across is if you go back to, hundreds of years ago, there are some lessons to be learned from that. And, it's some of the most basic ones, right? Drinking the right amount of water a day, getting the right amount of sleep, getting exercise every day, all of that type of stuff. And that's been a quintessential piece of this is like, if you don't have a plan in place for yourself, business or personal, you're going to keep repeating the pain that keeps you there. You just will. And you need an accountability partner to keep you out of that pain. And that if you don't feel the pain, it's because you're numbing yourself. And so that's the kind of way that I work with people, is being very conscious and very aware of that, and then being able to challenge them so that if they're keeping on reverting back to a certain place, it's because their fear of change, which you can't help anymore. It's going to keep on changing. And we've seen this over and over again. That's why the brand Press Forward is built, is because our goal is to provide people with momentum, and momentum in their lives, momentum in their businesses. And the way that happens is you have to first get to a place where you trust yourself, and everything happens. I'm a firm believer that everything happens at the speed of trust and integrity. And so there's all these words that we use around accountability and trust and making a plan and putting the systems in place so that you can do that. And so throughout that, we kind of build our universe of people throughout the year. And then when we get to that point, we'll build out an event that is meant to be kind of like, being in a movie of sorts and working your way up to where it's now your turn to go slay the dragon. And you're going to do it with a group of people that are slaying their own dragons. And as funny as that sounds, it's very, very true that if you give people this ability to kind of like build up tools, new systems, and believe in themselves differently, and then take them on an adventure together, something they've never done before in a place they've never been before, then it kind of builds up to it, right? It builds up to this big, amazing experience and this big release for it. So, we will definitely be doing the Neptune retreat again next year. It's probably one of my favorites now. We recently just ran a pistol and gun event at Staccato Ranch in Texas. We'll be doing that one again in January. And then we've got a Montana trip, camping in Montana for a couple days, like off the grid camping, which is another big one that we're planning that's coming up soon. And I just love doing this with people. Like, I think the biggest thing for me, what people see, I think, Glenn, you've seen this in our conversations, is like, when I told you to get your shit together, like, none of that was coming from a place of like slighting you or thinking you or shitting on you or anything like that. I just recognize that there are some times in very specific instances when we all need to get like a good, swift kick in the butt and be told like, hey, you're capable of more. I don't understand why you're hanging out here anymore. And I'm so glad that kind of clicked the Rubik's Cube for you a little bit. And we all need that, right? Like, at some point we're playing with the Rubik's Cube and we get stuck. We can't figure out the thing. We toss it to somebody else and they go, here you go, here's your Rubik's Cube, move on. And that's just how I operate.
And it was an inspiring moment for me. It really was. And I think that a lot of us, the other thing I learned is, and I sort of had this already, but you kind of brought it out more intensely in me, is that you have to be self-aware. It is 100% okay to say, I don't know how to do this. I don't know this piece. I have this piece, and this piece, but I don't know what the fuck to do here. And I think that when I did your accountability, that was my piece, the accountability part. Mm-hmm. And that's where get your shit together. And every day you were like, Glenn, did you get your leads? Well, what the fuck? Let's go, man. And that's what I got out of your 21-day accountability. I hope you do another one, because I think it's very beneficial to anybody in the group who's listening and watching, or watching later. Thank you, by the way, for watching. And I think it's going to be massively beneficial for everybody. Like, I heard a story this weekend. I was with somebody this weekend. I don't want to mention it because I don't want to bring people's business out, but they had mentioned to me, somebody started a business recently. They went to visit business to support them. And in the middle of the day at like 2:00, nobody was there. Doors were locked. And he was just like, this is something you need to have open so people can visit. You can't be going off on your own errands. It's a discipline. And I think that
it's 100% a discipline. And the thing is like, at this stage of my career and my life, business is not hard. Like, once you have the knowledge piece of it, your business is not hard. I say this all the time, is before you have an emotional problem, you have a math problem. And especially in sales, because sales, to your point, Glenn, is a math problem, right? It's like, get this many leads every day, do this many things, close clients. And then if I'm not doing it, that's one problem. If you're not doing it well, that's a place for improvement. And if you're obviously just think that you're going to open the doors and they're going to come flooding in, that's not how it works. And so I think a lot of people, when they start their own businesses, they don't have the resources available to them. And so they have to like eat what they kill and take what they have available to them. And the hard part with that is, and I've actually been through this conversation a lot with a lot of people, is I coach people that are doing $600,000, $1,000 a year in a small business, $1 million a year, $5 million a year in their business. And I ask them, what's the plan? Show me the plan. Show me the physical plan. And they're like, we don't have one. We just get up every day and we grind, because we got children to feed and we got, people to make happy and we got kids to pay for their schools and their food. And that's the biggest thing is like people will spin and not know or have the time, right? Like you said, I really just pulled out. I saw in you the tools that you have. I can pick up on those things. I've been at this long enough to know that when I speak to people, I can tell what tools they have. And I just kind of brought them to the surface for you again so that you could repurpose and reuse your tools. And then sometimes you see like, oh, this tool doesn't serve me well. I need to get a new tool. And then that's where I come in and be like, all right, now let's update the tool set, right? But that's a very sophisticated process because that person has to be in a place where they can receive the fact of like, oh, I've got the tools to do this. Oh, I've tried to use this tool. It's not working anymore, or it doesn't serve me well. Now I need to have the ability to receive help. And men are just not naturally good at receiving help or asking for help because of our egos. And it's a very, very powerful process. But at the end of the day, I go back to, you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan. And you got to take inventory on the tools that you have in place. From a self-awareness standpoint, you have to learn, kind of how to let go of some of the things that don't serve you well anymore because they're taking up time and space. And then you probably got to up level and edit yourself and get new tools and new systems. And then you got to progress forward. Like that's one of our most clearest frameworks that we use. And it sounds good on paper until the question becomes, did you get your leads today? And that's where the sales accountability group and a bunch of other programs that we have kind of come into play.
And it helped me tremendously. And I want to personally thank you. Publicly and personally thank you for changing my direction and forcing my pivot and then giving me that swift kick in the ass. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know it was early because I saw you were traveling over the weekend and I know it's, you wanted to get some extra sleep. So on behalf of all the viewers, I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah, me too. I'm having such a good time doing it. I'm having a lot of fun. Thanks very again, cool. Man. Oops. Thank you guys so much. I'm hitting the wrong buttons. This is my fault. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching the Monday Motivation Dads in Business podcast. Neal Conlon is an amazing person. If you have not connected with him, definitely connect with him. Check out his group, his 21-day accountability, all the coaching programs he has. Press Forward Momentum. Yeah, Press Forward Momentum. But I'm going to post some links in the chat soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you next week, Monday morning, 8 a.m.